Drop a comment and let me know which city or country you're listening from. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you hate Karens. Have you ever returned home after a long shift only to find that someone else has been enjoying your house more than you ever have? Imagine this. I'm a zookeeper dressed in full business regalia, sitting through an agonizingly long boardroom meeting. I idly glance at my phone, flipping open my home security app. And who do I find? Karen, my neighbor, having a full-blown night party in my subterranean pool, blasting music, lights flashing like it's the Strip. Total strangers wandering around, all while I'm wasting my overtime keeping lions from confusing interns with chew toys. So I called in an old friend, Rocky, a 12-foot crocodile with no tolerance for crap. Let's just say, after Rocky paid a visit, Karen's little pool party phase ended forever. Now about that boardroom. The air was heavy, stifling. A haze of boring voices droned on about whether or not the panda enclosure required ethically sourced bamboo. My tie felt like a boa constrictor, wrapping itself around my neck and squeezing the life out of me. I hated these meetings. Fieldwork was a dream in comparison. Give me runaway monkeys or elephant poop over this any day. Then my phone buzzed, another home security notification. I don't even look at those in meeting. It's usually just squirrels triggering the motion detector. But this one didn't sit right with me. Perhaps it was the lone drop of sweat tracing its way down my back under the rigid shirt. So I glanced discreetly under the table, launched the app, and kaboom, my jaw drops. Live video feed of sheer pandemonium. My serene underground pool had been transformed into a wild nightclub. Disco lights flashed in mad hues over the water. Some DJ played the worst techno mix I've ever heard, so badly I could hear it through the minuscule speakers on the phone. And in the middle of it all, posing like she owned the suburbs, was Karen. Karen, my entitled neighbor with a level of entitlement so great it could ruin milk from across the street. She's the kind who makes HOA complaints because leaves fall from my trees onto her yard. The same one who has asked me in all seriousness before if I would train the peacocks from the zoo to dial it back during mating season. And now, she was just kind of taking over my backyard as if it was hers. The brashness was completely mind-boggling. I could view her clearly on the camera. A contorted parody of poolside sophistication packed into a sequin bathing suit that had at least 2 sizes too many to fit comfortably. She laughed, thrashing about with a plastic cup filled with something more than likely drunk and too sugary. There was a knot of equally rancorous persons gathered around her, obviously too far gone in merriment, utterly clueless or insensitive that they were trespassing on someone's land. My blood began to boil. This wasn't a minor inconvenience. This was a blatant disregard of my personal space and an impudent showing of complete disrespect. I had to do something. But what? Calling the cops occurred to me, yes. But I knew already how that script went down. Some feeble warning, perhaps a token reference, and then Karen would be at it again next weekend as if nothing had occurred. No, this case required something more, lasting, something with staying power, something with a big, scaly reptile. The rest of the meeting receded into the distance. I nodded along, grunted the occasional half-hearted assent, and did my best to maintain a veneer of professional interest, all the while expertly choreographing Karen's dramatic downfall in my mind. My mind whirled with solutions. Perhaps a cloud of bees let loose near the pool, or disguised glitter bombs scattered all over her house. I even thought about replacing her beloved petunias with nasty, thorny weeds. All imaginative, no doubt, but none quite possessed the refinement I sought. Then it hit me. Rocky. Rocky, the zoo's reptile house star, was a dazzling specimen of Crocodilus porosus, a saltwater crocodile with a temperament as changeable as a Florida summer thunderstorm. Rocky and I had developed a curious bond over the years. Perhaps it was a mutual sense of being misunderstood, or perhaps it was simply that I was the one who brought him food. Either way, Rocky considered me his friend, and at that time, I needed every shred of that trust. Excusing myself from the boardroom, I slipped silently away to grab a quiet space and pulled out my phone. "Hey, Dave," I said, attempting to sound steady even though seething rage bubbled just under the surface. Dave was one of the elder reptile handlers, a man who knew more about crocodile psychology than anyone else I knew. "Got a little weird situation," I told him. "Need you to do a favor." I explained the particulars, tactfully omitting several colorful details. The creak of the trailer door was slow and tentative. The cacophony of music drowned out the sound at first, but as the beat dropped, a low, guttural rumble shook out from inside. Then in a slow and controlled movement that belied his enormity, Rocky emerged. The moonlight danced across his huge, scaled form, flashing off the series of deadly, razor-sharp teeth in his massive jaws. He absorbed it all, the partygoers, the flashing lights, the thumping music, with an ancient, almost contemplative stare. For a moment he stood there, a prehistoric predator eyeing its prey. Then he walked, slow, measured. He shuffled toward the pool. His huge feet made hardly a sound on the plush grass, but his presence was deafening. You could feel it. A silent tide of primitive fear started to swell over the party. Karen, still blissfully ignorant of what was to ensue, was halfway through a karaoke rendition of some depressing pop tune. Her voice, screaming through a tacky speaker, grated on my nerve, but not for long. As Rocky edged nearer the water, some of the keen guests at last began to take notice. It started as a ripple of puzzlement, some sideways glances, a few whispered questions. Then someone shrieked. That shriek cut sharp as a knife through the music. Heads spun around, mouths fell open. The karaoke suddenly went flat. And then, before anyone could do anything about it, the atmosphere broke. Gone was the fun-loving partying, substituted in a flash with unvarnished, naked fear. Individuals ran from the pool, staggering, screaming, colliding with one another in a frantic rush to escape. The room was filled with screams and gasps as Karen, at last aware that something was amiss, spun around. Her face, previously flushed with booze and self-importance, lost all color. Her mouth dropped open in a silent scream. For an instant, I could have sworn I saw a glimmer of true fear in her eyes. It was wonderful. Rocky just kept going, slow and deliberate, his gaze fixed on Karen. He didn't snarl, snap, or even take off like a shot. He just walked, a dinosaur come to life taking back his territory. It was a destructive effect, with people running from fear, upending tables and chairs, sending drinks and snacks flying in all directions. Karen was stuck, paralyzed with terror, frozen like a deer in headlights, totally unable to move. "Rocky, heal!" I ordered, my voice made louder by the shocked quiet. To my astonishment, he complied, halting a few feet short of Karen. He swung his enormous head in my direction, his eyes probing. "Good boy, Rocky," I praised, scratching his snout. "Good boy." Karen, still slowly coming back to herself, discovered her voice. "What is that creature?" she stuttered, pointing a shaking finger at Rocky. "That," I said, my tone dripping with sarcasm, "is Rocky. He's my security system." I let my words hang in the air, waiting for the impact. "And he doesn't take kindly to uninvited guests." By that point, the other partygoers had long since dispersed, leaving a trail of utter devastation. Empty beer cans covered the lawn, abandoned pool toys bobbed aimlessly in the water, and a half-eaten plate of nachos sat forlorn on a table. Karen, looking white-faced and shaken, stood in front of me, her mask of mortification frozen on her face. I had no idea," she stuttered. I thought the house was empty." "Well, now you know," I said curtly, my voice unforgiving. "And just to make it perfectly clear, this is a one-time offer. Next time, I won't be so merciful." "You got that?" Karen shook her head enthusiastically, wide eyes filled with fear. Yes, I get it. This won't ever happen again. I swear." "Good," I replied. "Now get off my lawn." She didn't need me to tell her twice. She hustled away, vanishing into her own house with an agility that didn't seem to belong to her old age. Dave and I cleaned up the mess for the next hour. Rocky, to my surprise, was very helpful, using his huge snout to push rubbish into a heap. It was bizarre, cleaning up after a pretend rave with a crocodile, but somehow it felt incredibly rewarding. As we at last finished up, the initial light of dawn started creeping above the horizon. The atmosphere was calm and peaceful, with nothing but the soothing lapping of the water against the pool breaking the silence. "Well, that was interesting," Dave said, a tired smile on his face. "Do you think she learned her lesson?" "I hope so, certainly," I said. "But even if she didn't, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Rocky give her a very friendly reminder either." I helped load Rocky back into his trailer, and Dave drove them back to the zoo. Watching them drive down the street into the distance brought me a vast sense of peacefulness. Justice, reptilian style, had been done. After that, Karen never hosted another party in my backyard. In fact, she hardly even looked at me. Whenever she saw me, I swear I saw a flash of fear in her eyes, the fear of the zookeeper and his very big,